Welcome back. So let's have the final word now on the president's position on the one-party agenda. And I'm now being joined on the program from Abuja by a man I call the democracy man himself, Omori Aigbe, who is a public affairs analyst and member of West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network. Stagbe, thank you very much for joining us on the program. You heard the president and everything he said, refuting the whole idea of a one-party state, that it's not what he represents. I mean, going down memory lane and all of that, and that, look, he never supported the idea in the past. He's not supporting it now, will not support it in the future. But all the same, he would not stop people from coming to his party, that his party would not shut the door against those who intend to join. Your take?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. You know, I don't expect that Nigerians will think that Mr. President will say, well, I'm responsible for bringing people to my party. I mean, this is clear. And I don't also think that Mr. President ought to have responded to it. By this response, it actually means that the president knows what he's doing. I mean, that it just sent a signal, a political signal. However, it is not the first time we are seeing this kind of trajectory. In 2014, we literally saw a PDP heading towards a one-party state, and the conversation around PDP ruling for 60 years became the conversation around in the public atmosphere. But today, I'm not sure when we're listing political parties, opposition political parties, one is almost curious to name PDP. Maybe the only difference is that the personality of the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, may have been different from the personality of Goodluck Jonathan as at that time. Because you remember, Goodluck Jonathan would say that the blood of innocent people, citizens, is not worth his victory and all of that. But I'm not sure President Tinubu would want to say that. I would think that would be the part of the conversation that President Tinubu should be saying. That, yes, it should be seen to be pursuing free, fair, and credible election, especially now that electoral reform is on. But one-party system in Nigeria is not the first time we are seeing it. It usually ends in a doctrine of irrelevance, so to say.
But I mean, from your own experience, I mean, we've seen this, just as you said. You mentioned 2013. We saw something similar to that in leading up to the 2007 election. At some point, PDP, of course, we know was a dominant party. We know what happened in 2023 when the AD states all fell to the PDP, and you know, Lagos was the only state standing. And at some point, we had almost more than 30 PDP governors in this country, no doubt about it. But even at that, we never, the idea of a one-party state never materialized. So do you think it can even happen? Is it something you can even conjecture for Nigeria?
It's a simple, see, it's not realistic for Nigeria to have a one-party state. It's not possible. Because within the APC of today, we are heading towards 2027 general election. By next year, 2026, we are going to see a lot of internal crisis within the APC.
Yeah.
Internal crisis, because for folks who are joining the party now, we want a return ticket. That would be the genesis of the upheaval that will hit up the polity. And if you impose people, because that's what may likely happen, and that's what led to the PDP fall. So you now start imposing candidates, and the moment you start imposing candidates, certain candidates who feel they got political clout will start pulling out to go join another alliance. You know, when you look at the formation of APC, it was a recognition that the PDP was a dominant political party, like you said a few minutes ago. However, to beat this dominant party, there need to be some kind of convergence of smaller powers to form the bigger power. So what is happening now? And one of the things that led to the strength of the APC is arguably the movement of the new PDP. You know, the likes of the Senate president at that time, the likes of the governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi at that time. There was a huge body of political actors that formed the new PDP. And of course, you also know Senator, what's his name now? Senator Okorocha, Rochas Okorocha, who was also in
came from Abga,
who moved with his own folks to form this alliance. of course, the CPC, the ADC, the NNPP, all of that. So what is happening now? When the PDP internal crisis began, alliances and realliances began to build up. And before you know what's happening, the party that had structure across the federation, that Obasanjo was able to secure AD states for PDP, and all of those things that, I mean, the entire Southeast at that time were all PDP. So you just see that it's something that the president needs to be careful about. Coming to your party, I know it will favor you for presidential candidates. It may even favor the president more, but it may be a crisis situation waiting to happen.
But then you look at our politicians. Would it be safe to describe them as ruling party politicians in the sense that, look, they always gravitate towards the ruling party? We saw that in the past. Always gravitating. It's just a few exceptions, but they always gravitate towards the ruling party.
Man, exactly. So for many reasons, and people talk about parliamentarians. One would have expected, I didn't expect state governors to do the same, but for parliamentarians, they do it for many reasons. Number one, the expectation from parliamentarians now among citizenry is becoming turning parliamentarians to executive positions. So one of the ways you present your scorecard is in physical project, not in legislative project. The parliamentarians have no business with construction of roads. The parliamentarians have no business with any form of building like we see that the executive does. But
hold on now. Hold on. Just a minute. I understand you, and that is no doubt a big problem. But then it appears the electorates are not understanding this. I mean, the constituents of these lawmakers are not understanding it, because the general impression among constituents all over the country is they are fond of asking what exactly has this senator or that House of Rep member done. So is it not the constituents now who are mounting pressure on these lawmakers and causing them not to even concentrate on their core function of lawmaking? Because look, as a lawmaker, if you concentrated on just lawmaking, at the end of the day, you may not get re-elected, because your constituents want to see what you're able to bring, attract, as we say, what projects were you able to attract. So isn't that where the problem is?
Yes, of course. That's the bane of our democracy today, that constituents no longer can differentiate between legislative functions and, of course, executive functions. The whole thing is that you have been elected, and for you to be elected, you must bring the dividends of democracy home. So whether you move one motion, or you never moved one, or you never ever propose a bill that fails, not to even talk about the bills that sail through. But what is important is that you went back home and you constructed something, and that is why you see parliamentarians going to commission electricity poles, maybe like 2 or 3 electricity poles, just to tell the constituents that they are bringing dividends of democracy home. But that's actually a pressure on parliamentarians, and that's why the parliamentarians ended up coming with what is called the constituency project. And you remember all of the padding issues that happened previous years. So the parliamentarians make an attempt to try to infuse into the budget certain of those privileges, but they will still need the executive connection for those approval. And that is why you see that movement. So you need to be able to align with the ruling party for that project, legislative project in the budget to be approved, because money, resources are scarce. And the only way to send out those resources you see the current budget, and we are talking about huge sums of money budgeted for street lights alone. Street lights. In fact, somebody made some kind of very funny proposal. The person said, if all the street lights in the constitution, in the budget are approved, Nigeria will be like heaven, because there'll be lights everywhere. It was a comic relief, but it's the reality. The pressure on parliamentarians to do like the executive is one of our biggest challenges today. However, it was the parliamentarians who put it on themselves. When they went campaigning, they started telling people they were going to bring dividends of democracy.
Yeah.
They started behaving executive. So what do you expect? The politicians, the constituents are expecting those things you promised. No parliamentarians promised new bills during campaign. That parliamentarian may never secure 2 votes. None of them promised they were going to move motion in favor of their constituent. They all promised democratic dividend. What people understand by democratic dividends is physical projects. I think maybe by the time we start to strengthen our electoral system, we can now begin to upgrade knowledge in code. I mean, I'm using that word upgrade knowledge. I'm not saying that Nigerians don't know, just that the pressure is much on these parliamentarians. And you see them trying to negotiate all manner so that they can earn additional money to be able to do some project in their hometown.
It's really a problem. Omori Agbe, thank you very much for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
It's an honor.
Well, that's it on the program. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.